Let me start again. I would like to call the February 19th, 2025 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors meeting to order at 6:59 p.m. In attendance, myself, Chairman David Gerstenhaber, and Supervisors Jim Johnson and Betsy Odgers. Also in attendance are Township Solicitor Guy Donatelli, Stan Corbett from ACOM, Township Operations Manager Jeff Eastburn, and Township Controller and Office Manager Melissa Ortega, and Township Secretary Stacy Hollis. We also have a representative from the county, Jeff Shellington, and there are 6 members of the public. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everybody. Now I'd like to open the floor to public comment. Public comment may include comments relating to anything on tonight's agenda items. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a resident of the township or a non-taxpayer, non-resident taxpayer in the township. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be included in the official minutes. Do we have any public comment? All right, not hearing any. I'll pass it over to Betsy.
The approval of the minutes from January 15th, 2025. Sorry. The approval of the minutes for January 15th, 2025 Board of Supervisors meeting. The proposed motion, I make a motion that the board approve the January 15th, 2025 Board of Supervisors meeting minutes. Seconded?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 3-0. February 3rd, Board of Supervisors workshop meeting minutes. I make a motion that the board approve the February 3rd, 2025 Board of Supervisors workshop meeting minutes. Seconded?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay? No? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Okay, Melissa Ortega is here to give us a treasurer's report.
Hi, good evening. The January 2025 Treasurer's Report includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $252,847.34. The Park and Rec Fund with disbursements of $11,789.43. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $118,350.16. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $0. The Emergency Services Fund with disbursements of $0. The Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80, leaving a balance in all funds totaling $2,455,537.01.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the board approve the January 2025 treasurer's report as presented by Melissa Ortega.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dave. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Zoning Officers Report. Zoning Officers Report. This report was compiled by the Township Zoning Officer, Mark Gordon. In the month of January 2025, there were 6 permits issued, $1,105.76 in permit fees, $0 in miscellaneous fees, $0 in recreations and open space fees, and $0 in impact fees were collected. There were 22 inspections performed.
All right. Thank you, Betsy. All right, so we're going to move on to business. There's a number of motions that the board will be voting on throughout this meeting. I just wanted to make a note that right now we only have 3 of our board members present in this meeting. if in an off chance where we don't vote unanimously, meaning we have a 2-1 vote, we would have to then re-vote at the next meeting because we would need to have the majority of the board pass an amendment. So if on an odd chance we don't agree on something, I'll say something like we'll have to table this discussion until we have the rest of the board here with us. I don't anticipate that being an issue tonight, but if you hear me say that, that is a reason. All right, thank you very much. So let's move on to the solicitor's report. First on the list is our Lexington Point discussion. And specifically the Lexington Point escrow release number 4. What this means is over the course of the work completion at Lexington Point, we had a escrow account, and as they hit certain milestones, we release some money from that escrow account. And so there's a list of items that was successfully completed with release number 4. These items were reviewed, and it is recommended that we approve this escrow release by St. Corbett, our ACOM engineer. This consisted of a stone base and paving of driveways in the WWTP area, wastewater treatment plant area, seeding and landscaping of WWTP, valve, vault, and piping, drip control panel and instrumentation, supply and return piping, drip disposal field construction, drip field overseeding. This was 10,800 square foot. Primary electric service, communication and wiring of control panels, and mobilization, administration, and shop drawings, and were all successfully completed. Therefore, it is recommended that we approve the release of escrow number 4. So with that, I would like to make a motion that the board approve Lexington Point's escrow release number 4 in the amount of $185,473.75 from bond number 301-45589, as reviewed and recommended by Stan Corbett of ACOM in his letter dated January 2025. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Betsy. Any discussion before we vote? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right. Motion carries 3-0. Okay. So the next item up for discussion is the adoption of user rates. And this is resolution number 2025-02. So we as a board met at our last workshop meeting to discuss what a reasonable service fee would be for that development. This would cover the operation of the wastewater treatment plant, and based on recommendation, we chose $590 per quarter. So I would like to make a motion that the board approve Lexington Point's sewer user fee as reviewed and recommended by Stan Corbett of ACOM to invoice each home of Lexington Point $590 per quarter. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? Okay. Just one quick point as we talk about, what we are charging our residents here. This is not a money-making operation. This is a not-for-profit effort. The goal here is to simply make sure that we have enough to cover the bills as we slowly move over and take ownership and operation of the wastewater treatment plant. All right. So with that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries 3-0. All right. Next is the wastewater treatment plant agreement amendment. Yeah, so I think this is, Guy, do you have something to say on this?
Sure.
And I need to bring it up on my screen as well.
So this is the culmination of a number of drafting exercises in cooperation with counsel for the developer. And over the course of the last 3 or 4 meetings, it became apparent that there was some interest in permitting the developer to construct homes, even though those construction of those homes would be outside of the milestones
Mhm.
of the agreement to construct community wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal facilities. And so what we set about doing was drafting a second amendment to that agreement to modify those milestones to permit the developer to begin construction only of homes within the development, even though the system, the sewer treatment plant, was not ready to accept waste or treat waste from those homes. And the reason that that was being discussed was because we had folks, constituents, who wanted to see the houses go up and were willing to wait until the sewer treatment plant was complete, while in the meantime, their home was being constructed. So we developed an amendment to that agreement, which made basically one amendment, and that was swapping out the Exhibit D of the agreement for a new Exhibit D. And the Exhibit D is the milestone agreement, milestone exhibit, and specifically the issuance of building permits and certificates of occupancy, and specifically building permits for houses number 16 through 38. And so what I'm proposing that the board do is adopt the new milestone schedule, the new Exhibit D to the agreement, and attached to this Exhibit D is going to be Exhibit D1. And Exhibit D1 is a commitment by the developer and any lot owner that needs to be executed and submitted at the time a building permit is pulled, recognizing that they have no right to access or occupy in any way, shape, or form any structure that's constructed on the lot unless and until the township is satisfied that the system is ready to accept waste from that lot. This came with a lot of discussion and, in my view, an interest of the board to try to accommodate the developer who is trying to accommodate its customers.
Mhm.
The important takeaway from this is that no unit will be permitted to utilize the system until it is, to the township's sole discretion, ready to go, even if the house is built. And even if that home and those homeowners have to pay taxes on that home consistent with an improved lot, which is something I suspect the developer and the lot owners who pull that building permit will want to discuss, because once there is an improvement authorized and then constructed on a lot, the taxes increase. So with that, I would recommend that the board consider favorably the amendment to the agreement. That would be Exhibit 1 and Exhibit D1, and I can see Stan just can't wait. He's got his hand he's got his hand on the button. But that's from my perspective, we're ready to go. And I've tried to work with Stan. We try to work with each other really closely so that this is a complete document, but I would welcome any comments you have, Stan.
Thank you. And that I agree with everything God just said, but I think some clarification is needed for the milestones with regard to the status of the wastewater treatment plant. The additional building permits would not be issued before the plant is in service. They would be issued upon approval to place facilities in service and when operation starts, which is, as was discussed at the board at the February 3rd workshop meeting. The follow-up certificates of occupancy would not be issued until completion of an initial startup period, which is defined in the agreement, and that's a minimum 90-day period after the plant has begun operations, kind of a shakedown period to make sure all the bugs have been worked out and everybody's satisfied that there's no real problems that need to be addressed.
Thank you. So we had just for folks' knowledge, if we had a fairly in-depth conversation about this at our workshop meeting this month. So if you want to review that, it's available on YouTube. We devoted pretty much 100% of the time of that workshop meeting with their discussion. And we came, I think, to kind of an agreement board wide that we would follow this path forward, making sure that the system, as Dan put it, the system is up in service before occupancy of any additional houses. So with that, I guess I don't know if Betsy or Jim, if you have anything else you want to add on this comment.
I'm good. I'm clear.
Okay, yeah, we've talked quite a bit about it. All right, so I would like to make a motion that the board approve the second amendment to construction community wastewater collection treatment facilities with the newly revised Exhibit D and Exhibit D1 as described by Solicitor Donatelli and Stan Corbett at this evening's meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Jim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. And motion carries 3-0. All right, and so we have a couple of amendments and declarations here that require no motion at this time. The first one is an amendment to declaration of access easements. I don't know if there's.
I'm looking at my emails because I know that I had exchanged emails with Riley Noetzel on these items that he and I had come to a meeting of the minds.
Okay.
With respect to those particular easements that he has already returned at least one of them signed. I've been looking at it now in our packet. There's no need for us to sign it. It is a requirement that the developer needs to satisfy in order to secure access. There was some language that we discussed back and forth. I believe there's really no action required by the board with respect to either of these. And my understanding is that those declarations have been or will be presented for the purposes of rounding out access to the project. So I'm comfortable. We don't have to do anything other than accept.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was, as you mentioned, we've been communicating about all of these items, and I believe based upon the email communications I saw on the form of the amendment to declaration of access easements, signature by the township is in fact required because the original declaration of access easement that we're amending had a provision that any changes require township signature.
So let's sign.
So I need-
let's sign.
So we'll sign that.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, well, now I feel bad that Donna isn't here because we're gonna make a motion to approve the Franklin Township solar ordinance. I say this because this solar ordinance has been on the books. We've been working on it through the Planning Commission since before I got on the board, 5 years ago, and Donna worked on it then. I worked on it for a while, and now Jim's worked on it. And so, yeah, I wish that she was here to vote on it. But here I go making the motion after a long development cycle. So I make a motion to adopt the Franklin Township Solar Ordinance 2025-01 as presented by Solicitor Guy Donatelli and reviewed by Franklin Township and the Chester County Planning Commission. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Betsy. Discussion?
Just a couple of items for the record. This was appropriately advertised and we have a proof of advertisement that's been returned. I notified the Planning Commission, the Chester County Planning Commission, that it was going to be advertised and that we were going to consider adoption of it this evening, and I thank them for their participation. And the only other thing we now have general code, I believe,
Mhm.
some point this should be forwarded along to them for inclusion into our general code.
Great. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries 3-0. Okay, so PA salt shortage discussion. You want to give us an update on our salt situation, Jeff? Okay.
I'd be happy to. Franklin Township does participate in the Pennsylvania Co-Stars program. Unfortunately, this year with the contractor we have, salt has been running pretty thin. And we got to the point in early February where they could not tell us when we would get deliveries any longer. So I know other townships throughout Chester County were dealing with the same thing, the short supply. I did reach out to 3 of the other contractors through CoStars, which would be Cargill, Morton, as well as Eastern Salt, and they could not supply any additional salt to anyone other than their customers, so they could not take us on. So the staff had to think quickly, especially with the storms that were supposedly coming. One this past weekend, and one tonight was supposed to be 8 to 15 inches by tomorrow afternoon. Thank God they've been delayed and pushed either south or north of us. But to try and stay ahead of the 8 ball here, or the curve, we did find another supplier, which is called Chemical Equipment Lab. And we did end up, I think we ended up purchasing 150 tons from them over a week. I just don't want the board to be surprised because salt is a hot commodity now. The price has increased per ton over the CoStar's price. But it's a nice feeling that we have that, and I'm still very grateful for that salt shed, because if we had not had the supply we had, we would have been in bad straits.
Is there any indication of why we're having a salt shortage? Is it a logistical problem? Did CoStars not buy enough? What's your feeling on what might be going on here?
My feeling, which is not a factual thing, is logistics and a short supply with American rock salt.
Is the salt delivered already, or is it to be delivered?
The new supplier has already been delivered. They were able to turn it around in 2 to 3 days, I think, Jim.
Okay. And is this all foreign salt, meaning it's not domestic, it comes in on barges and stuff?
I do know they said it came in on a barge. I can't tell you from where. I honestly don't know. I can find out if you're interested. But
No, just wondering. Sorry.
No.
I have to find.
no. So, from what I understand from Guy, because we had a conversation, and I'm going to pass the mic to him.
Yeah. The issue is the authority of a township or any municipality to purchase items above a certain price without following formal bidding requirements. And so I looked into that, and there are a couple of ways that some municipalities are handling it. Berks County passed an emergency declaration. Nothing unusual. I mean, I'm sure you've done it, at least must have done it for the pandemic. And so I looked at that as an option. I ultimately lit on a fairly conventional provision of the second-class township code, which permits a township in an emergency situation to sidestep or take actions outside of what I would normally recommend you do to bid purchase. And it's I call it the emergency exception. And so Jeff described for me the situation. He laid out for me his efforts to find salt to CoStars, which is your preferred method, I suspect, of buying that kind of stuff. And my advice to him was, let's not recommend an emergency declaration, because in my view, from my experience, they're more appropriate in situations where you really don't know what you're going to encounter. So you basically say, here, Jeff, here's your permission to do whatever you need to do to handle whatever comes our way. Here we have a specific emergency. We don't have time to go out and bid. We're expecting storms. We were expecting a storm while he and I were discussing the potential, the lack of salt and the potential lack of salt for the foreseeable future. So my recommendation to him was, let me review that. I gave him an opinion that basically said, under the second-class township code, you can go outside the bidding requirements. I don't recommend that often, because I think bidding is an essential function of a township. But in an emergency situation, you have to protect the traveling public. And as I said to Jeff, I'd rather do it this way than see some school bus get hauled out of a ditch because we didn't have enough salt. So that's why I recommended what I recommended. I think it's sound advice. Who knows how long this will last? Hopefully, you have enough salt to get you through to whenever it stops icing up. I would recommend a simple motion to ratify any purchases or contracts made by Mr. Eastburn on behalf of the township to purchase salt on an emergency basis, so that he's covered, and that the action is done by the agency as opposed to an individual.
Make a motion to ratify Jeff Eastburn to make emergency purchases of salt and other items related to storms. As he sees fits. Is that the right? May I have a second? I'll second it. Thank you. Need a buzzer system. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. My mic wasn't on. So if you didn't hear that, we just made a motion to empower Jeff Eastburn to make emergency purchases on behalf of the township that may be outside of a formal bidding process, as using the salt emergency as an example. Okay. Next, we have the PennDOT 896 project update. This was information from February 12th, 2025 meeting. I don't really have anything formal to say. I don't know, Jeff, if you have anything that you'd like to share about that.
Just for the record, after that meeting, we did receive 2 emails from a Mrs. Lampley, who had questions regarding the stormwater management,
Okay.
as well as the easement for her property.
Mm-hmm.
She has that corner property at Den and 896.
She was concerned about, if I remember right, she was concerned about the noise and inconvenience as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
So I did forward that email along to Bruce Massey.
Okay.
I have not heard a response back from Bruce. I will follow up with him next week
Mm-hmm.
to talk to him about that. And then also, there was a young lady at the meeting who had a suggestion for Gypsy Hill Road. I have some alternate ideas that I want to run by Bruce and Ron Reagan, and I can share them here quickly. I don't have any prices. On Gypsy Hill Road, we could put up some additional street lighting, which would be installed by Pico. I've tagged out 3 locations. On that sharp curve there, we do have pretty good signage, arrow signage, and the posts are reflective that have been in place for a while. And then we can also enhance that with some flexible delineators. So if a truck or something hits it, it comes back up.
Great. Thanks.
So I just wanted to let you know about the young lady who contacted us.
So just as an additional piece of information, we had a meeting with Bruce Massey from Penn and some other representatives from PennDOT. on February 12th. That meeting should also be up and available on our YouTube site. We talked about a couple of different subjects. First was around the roundabout. We spoke quite a bit about the roundabout during that period of time, and materials of construction, lighting of the roundabout, size, impact to the residents, and a lot of those questions were still open. They won't be answerable until we sit down and have a similar meeting with the folks who are leading the construction portion of the project. Bruce and his team are in the design portion of the project. So when we get to construction, we'll have a representative here and talk about our biggest concerns, which is impact of the residents who live around that roundabout, and then any construction issues with the roundabout as we move forward with this 896 improvement project. One interesting note is it seems like the project has been pushed back from about a year, I would say. We were looking at 2026 now as a start date versus end of 2025. So we're still quite a ways away right now from actually starting to dig up pavement. So that I think is it. And if you wanted more information, as much as we were able to ascertain, you can go to the February 12th, 2025 meeting up on YouTube. And then the last bullet point here we have is a quick update on the Keene Trail. We've been working with a volunteer, Matt Thompson from Velo and Me Bike Club. And he's been, I don't know if he's been out yet. The weather's been okay. He's been out and he's cleared the Keene Trail. 60% of it done. Yeah. Weather's has not been cooperative. So, we've been trying to get as much information as we can on the dispute between the landowner and Franklin Township right now. Most of the information is with Natural Lands Trust as we negotiate and determine what the appropriate property line is. For those who may not be aware, we have had a trail there that's been accessible to pedestrians for many, many years. The property changed hands, and the new property owner put up a fence that disrupted our access to the trail. And we have a disagreement currently where that easement is for the trail. So as we work through that, we'll keep the township updated, and we're going to try and make sure that the trail is as accessible as we can make it to residents. It should be good enough for pedestrian traffic. So hopefully we can get all of that done, and you guys can start using that trail again in short order. Unfortunately, not much more update from that on that, I don't think. So
yeah, let me just say this. We heard from NLT. They have their folks on it. I can't give you an ETA on when we're going to get a view from them. I mean, they oversee a lot of property, but it's on their radar and they're taking a look at it. So as soon as I hear something, or my partner Vince Pompo hears something, we'll push it out to Jeff. And my experience with NLT is that they're high performers, and so I'm hoping they will wade in, so to speak, and weigh in. So
would it be helpful to poke them a little bit and say, "Hey, where are we at?" Or
I'm happy to ask Vince to do that. He has the relationship,
right.
And I'll poke Vince, and Vince will poke them.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Let the poking begin. All right. Thank you. So let's move on to the Agricultural Security Area Committee member appointment. So the Agricultural Security Area, or the ASA, is a committee that's designed to strengthen and protect agriculture in Pennsylvania. The agricultural security areas promote more permanent and viable farming operations over the long term by strengthening the farming community's sense of security in land, land use, and the right to farm. So participating farmers are entitled to special considerations and are protected from nuisance challenges by local and state government agencies. And so the ASA committee is required to have 3 farmers, one person from the governing body, which would be Franklin Township, and 1 resident. And so right now we have John Hawking and Dave Hoffman as representatives from the farming community. Donna D has volunteered to be the governing body representative, and our resident is Kevin Barrow. So the person that has come forward who would like to be another farmer would be Jay Dekowitz. Okay, that was a tough one. I make a motion to appoint Jay Dekowitz to the Franklin Township Agricultural Security Committee. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Betsy. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much. All right. And so now the board, okay, so we need to authorize the forwarding of the application to the Franklin Township ASA Committee, the Franklin Township Planning Commission, and the Chester County Planning Commission, and the Chester County Agricultural Commission. We'll also advertise that the Franklin Township ASA Committee meeting and date times, and post and stake the property with a notice of advertisement. Wait a minute, did I get crossed up here? No, okay. So this is different. So the Board of Supervisors should acknowledge receipt of the ASA application from 1067 Wickerton Road. That's what I missed. All right, so we have an ASA application from 1067 Wickerton Road, and so we now need to authorize you to forward that. Do I need a motion, or do we just, no, I'd just say go do it.
I think we could do it by motion, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I make a motion to forward the application along to the Franklin Township ASA Committee and the Franklin Township Planning Commission, Chester County Planning Commission, and Chester County Agriculture. I make a motion to also advertise the Franklin Township ASA Committee meeting date and time, and to post and stake the property with the notice of advertisement.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries 3-0. All right. With that, we can move to our commission and committee reports. We do not have a report for the Historical Commission this month, and we also will not have a Friends of the Healing Garden report, as Dawn is feeling a bit under the weather tonight and could not make the meeting. So we will start with the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Committee report. Heather.
Hi. Yeah, let me start by saying regarding the Keene Trail, I know Dave, you and I spoke a few days ago about that, and we were completely unaware that we discussed that we were going to, do our best to make that trail passable, pending what was going on, I don't want to use the word litigation, but dispute wise. But we were not aware, and we would love to, well, I guess we can speak with Matt directly, but we would love to be brought in the loop about what's going on there, and, be involved and help in whatever way possible. Because as you know, we've been bugging you guys a lot about the status of what's going on there, and want to be included in anything that's happening. Then going on to our update, I will also skip the Gardens and Meadow update since Supervisor Dowling is not on tonight, and a lot of that involves her directly. We don't have a lot going on right now, but we have a big, hopefully big, this Sunday, we have a volunteer day at Bamshire where we would like to primarily focus on cutting some of the vines that are choking out some of the trees in the preserve. But there are other cleanup jobs that can be done, as well as if the ground is not too frozen, we have a big hole to fill in where a large tree went down a month or two ago. And with the recent wind, there's a lot of trail cleanup, branches and trees that have gone down that may also need some cutting. So anyone who can help us out, it looks like we're gonna have a pretty decent turnout. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. But that's it. That's this Sunday, the 23rd at 9 a.m. at Bamshire. We plan to meet in the parking area and go from there. So anyone who has chainsaws, mainly, we probably won't need large size chainsaws, but anyone who's chainsaw savvy and willing to help, great. And like I said, there's other things to do even for those who are not having a chainsaw. We have a few other projects that we want to continue to work on. One being the trail markers and kiosks at Crossan Park. And that will be one of the assignments that we'll be working on. If we don't have a scout to take on that project, then as a committee, the pro will move forward on continuing that, as well as tying in those trails and markers to the preserve, to Franklin Preserve next door. Some future projects, we have been made aware that we need a bridge in Bamshire to get a mower across the stream area to mow some of the bigger major area of the trail. And we need to move some telephone poles and figure out our budget for purchasing decking and whatever other small supplies might be needed for that. We also need a bridge at Franklin Preserve on the Red Trail that crosses the stream, but we need to hold off on that a little bit because the upper part of that creek or stream may be involved in some MS4 remediation. So once that has happened, or if we have more of a plan for that, we can figure out what to do with the stream at the bottom. In the meantime, it's been suggested that maybe there's a way that we can, I'm not sure what the term is, but sort of make that stream passable by stacking rocks, or spreading rocks across it to make it walkable by foot and perhaps by bike as well. As I said, the volunteer day on Sunday, we will also have a volunteer day in March where we want to repair tree tubes in a number of areas. So we would like to start advertising for that too, so we have a good turnout. And in April and May, there will be more pro-sponsored trail days and park wake up days, I should say. And we will advertise those as well. And for you supervisors who were there tonight, we provided a draft, or what we hope is the final draft perhaps, for some of the farmland properties that have been preserved in the township, for those owners who are willing to advertise this. Kyle Bianco has been working very hard for a number of months on putting that graphic together for a proposed sign, and we would just like your feedback on that. So I pause right now, and I know we have a limited board there tonight, but if you've had time to look at it and
Yeah, thank you, Heather, for bringing this forward. We've been looking forward to actually taking a look at this preserve sign, and if I can make it small so I can actually see the whole thing. So I like the design very much. I think my suggestion is, and you don't have to do any more work on it. I think what we might want to do is wait for the whole board to be here, because I'd like to get Don and Donna's feedback. But the design looks good. I think what we're going to do, and what I don't see is the size. Thank you. What I don't see is the sign size. I know there were some options in terms of how big these signs were going to be and how they were presented and how they're staked. But as far as a final, I don't know how you guys feel about it. Sort of as a final vote and saying, hey, this is what our township signs look like. I wonder if we want to wait until March to actually make the final decision so we have everybody here to discuss it. I wonder if my first question as I looked at it, and maybe there was a reason for it, is why not have, I guess because it's Franklin Township and Chester County. I mean, it's answered my own question, why we don't have the township logo on it. But it's because we have a collaboration between Franklin Township and Chester County.
I think there's only so much you can,
Yeah.
put on there without having it look too busy, as well as
Yeah.
the township logo might not be as obvious without multiple colors.
Yep.
But
No, it makes sense. And we'd
But-
also have to put Chester County on there and everybody else's logo, and then it'll turn into a big mess. So keeping it simple is great. I like that is very simple. And I don't see, we'll get feedback from Don.
Kyle's recollection was that you had suggested to take the logo off.
Yeah.
You had it on there
Yeah.
originally, and I think that's why. I think you realized that,
Yeah.
everybody's logo might need to be
Yep.
on, and it just gets too busy.
Yeah, as I remember, as I was asking myself the question, I was answering it like, oh, I remember this conversation we had.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, looks great. Looks nice and simple. I think what we'll do, and I want to get feedback from Don Dowling and Donna D, and when we can finalize if we have to change the wording, and then maybe we can get some sign designs, sizes and how we would
Yeah.
post them.
One of my recollections from previous conversations with Pro was that it was going to be 22 inches high, but it might be, but someone else had indicated that it might be close
Yeah.
to 16 to 18 high. It's oval, longer high than wide, I guess. And
Yeah, having that would be probably another thing we would need to do to really understand and we can work it out. I mean, if we decide on this sign design, I think we can as a board work out how big we want it or how big what makes sense. So yeah, thank you. So we'll take it up and we'll make a decision in the March meeting. Looks great though. I think it's great.
sounds good. Yeah, and I say thank you again to Kyle for all of her work on that.
Yeah, Kyle, thank you.
One last thing with that is, we have seen, several of the members have seen, similar signs in other townships and, and elsewhere around the state. So we might, between now and over the next month or two, be able to look at some other places and see, as driving by, how big those signs are and, if if they seem sufficient.
You had shared with us some options with what the signs look like and how they were posted. There were some pretty nice, elaborate looking signs with big, almost like the Bannershire sign, right? Big and then there were smaller signs on posts, which I think is the ones we were thinking we would do.
Yeah,
I think that was
and
yeah. I think
they need to be flashy, but big enough that people can read
Yeah.
it without being an offensive advertisement to the owner.
exactly. Yeah, I think it would be that little sign on a post is what we were thinking last time we saw it. But
We might have to think about some options too, because it depends on where it gets posted. If it's not, the farm owner might want it on a wall or something like that. I don't know.
like attached to a fence
Attached
or
to
something.
something, yeah, attached to something else instead of a post by itself. But just options to think about.
Okay.
And it's not like we'll have 200 of these, so we could certainly,
That's right.
we
It's
do them on a case by case basis.
like we got 5 or something.
Yeah. Hopefully more down the road, but
Yeah, for sure. For
but
sure.
as long as they have some similarity where they all kind of indicate the same thing over time.
I think the
then
sign,
size can be, determined by, location.
I think the sign itself needs to be the same. Regardless of where it is, the sign has to be the same. Whether it's a standalone post or it's put on a fence post.
I agree.
with we have to be consistent with our design language, as they say. So everyone who knows they'll see it and know what it is. But great. Thank you guys. This is great. I look forward to getting this project off the ground.
And then final thing is that we're, as a committee, we are trying, we are on a new focus to keep all of our upcoming projects and activities on a more timely, I won't say more timely, but on a more scheduled basis. And we may be assigning individuals on the committee to sort of chair up each individual activity to divide some of the workload, as well as, keep some accountability on timing moving into the summer. So I personally am putting together a spreadsheet now of all the different activities, and we'll break it down from there, and maybe by next month have a good outline at least for you.
That's great. And if I mean, I know everybody feels differently, but if you're comfortable and you have your own project and you want to come and talk at a board meeting through your own project, that'd be great.
So noted.
Take some of the load off of you, Heather. You don't have to go through it all on your own.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be interesting. Great.
All right. Well, I hope to see a lot of people on Sunday, and our next meeting is Wednesday, March 5th. Thank you all.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate the update.
Next is the Big Elk Creek update. Antia?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So since we last went over things, we had the 6th and what was supposed to be the final task force meeting. Former Senator Andy Dinniman actually attended this meeting as a representative for Elk Township and spent a lot of time throughout this meeting reminding DCNR of the agreements that they had made with various groups to receive the funding to purchase the Strawbridge property. He did a great job of educating everyone on some of the history leading up to the purchase, and talked so long that the meeting went well past its 9 o'clock cutoff time. He was very comprehensive, but was also accompanied by many task force members agreeing with him and jumping in on the conversation. We did spend approximately 45 minutes discussing preserve status yet again, during which Hollis admitted that during the many preserve status discussions, no one in the task force disagreed. And then they had us break into small groups again, like they did when we did the build your own park exercise. This time, instead of sitting down with markers and drawing pictures, they just had us write words up on a sheet of paper to go over input on accessibility, park usage, and other recommendations. It was almost identical to the Design Your State Park one. Each group then took their time to present their lists to the entire task force and opened the floor for discussions on those lists. Most of the groups said basically the same thing, that we want low impact, both multi-use and single-use trails, permeable parking, things of that nature. We did discuss utilizing an area of open field for oversized or special use parking for buses and horse trailers for the fox hunting groups, etc., instead of having one large parking lot that could accommodate them. It does sound like DCNR likes the idea of putting all the infrastructure in Franklin Township on the site of the old Crossin Farm. However, they are planning to put multiple parking lots spread throughout the park, similar to White Clay Creek. At this point, camping is not part of the master plan, and DCNR claims that they have to complete the master plan before potentially adding other elements to the park, and the master plan should take 3 to 5 years to complete. Toward the end of the meeting, Representative Lawrence did present a statement for task force members to sign. It basically indicated the recommendation of the task force to return the park to a preserve and limit the infrastructure to something in line with White Clay Creek. We do have 11 signatures on that document out of the 19 task force members, which is a majority. And if you consider that 5 of those task force members were appointed by DCNR, that means there's only really 14 task force members that were not appointed by them. So to have 11 is definitely a majority. He did read that document into the House record when the House was in session back on January 29th. And then we were also informed at the end of the meeting that there would be a 7th task force meeting Originally, it was tentatively scheduled for March 6th to be a presentation and discussion of the final conceptual master plan. However, we did receive an email last week from John Hollis asking us to move the date into May because he said that they need to give the professionals necessary time to update all the mapping needs and also provide task force members with a draft of all the written portions of the plan. The written content will serve as the details, considerations, and instruction for the implementation of this master plan. So at this point, they've pushed that to March 6th. And they did ask us at the end of that meeting to submit any notes or comments for the master plan, and those notes were due by February 6th. Eileen Butler and I did submit notes, as well as a few other task force members. I know John Lawrence submitted a very large document that had a bunch of supporting documents and appendices and everything included. Then let's see. I also had a conversation with John Kane last week, and Senator Kane was calling to update me on his meeting with Cindy Dunn that he had said he was going to do when he sat down and met with the townships. So he said when he sat down with her in her office, that the discussion was him telling her that he fully supports the return to preserve status and believes that that's the only way forward for the park. He also was pushing for some sort of document guaranteeing that there would be no overnight accommodations in perpetuity in the park. He said Secretary Dunn told him that because it's not based in the master plan, camping is off the table as far as she's concerned, as long as she is the Secretary of DCNR. However, she will not tie the hands of her successors, so we cannot guarantee what happens in the future. She also did not respond one way or the other at all about preserve status. So because of this meeting and how it went, Senator Kane told me that he's going to write a letter basically summarizing their meeting, and he'll send that letter to Secretary Dunn and to myself so that I can share it on social media and on the website, and basically puts his position out there for the public to see. And I think, and an update on the rally that we were trying to put together for next week. We did not get as many people to agree to go as I was hoping, so I am going to cancel that. We're not going to go up. I think at this point anyway, where we are and with them pushing the master plan until May, it's better to hold off anyway so that we can get as many people to participate as possible, maybe when it's more effective. Depending on how I'm feeling, I may drive up just for the hearing anyway to be there. And if anybody else wanted to drive up, we can all certainly go do that. It's open to the public. And I think that's everything.
Thanks, Antia. It's interesting to me to hear, the Secretary of DCNR say that she doesn't want to tie the hands of anyone who comes in after her, because I think the whole point of preserving land is to tie the hands of anybody who comes in after you. So I feel like it's an interesting statement to say, I don't want to preserve this land because someone may not want to preserve this land.
I mean, that's been her party line from the beginning. I don't think she's actually interested in turning it back into a preserve, I'll be honest.
Obviously, right? She just doesn't want to be the one who pulls the trigger.
The only thing I can say is now with John Kane on our side, that could help. I know he said he planned to try to discuss things with Governor Shapiro, so we can see how that goes. We definitely are getting more people on our side as we go along. And I'm not giving up. I think there's still room to push, but I think right now we just have to wait for this master plan to come out. And, she's claiming that they need to do all of these studies and environmental analyses and everything before they decide to make a decision on turning it back into a preserve or not. And she keeps telling everyone that it doesn't matter anyway, that it's not, that doesn't, because this preserve is not defined in state law.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't matter, then why not do it?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, because the name preserve carries with it certain connotations, whether they're legal or not, right?
Right, exactly.
So, so my other question was just for a point of clarity. You said something about the master plan taking 3 to 5 years. Is that to execute the master plan or is that to write the master plan?
That's to execute the master plan. So
Okay.
basically, once the master plan is written, which we'll be seeing, the task force members will be
May.
seeing a copy of in May, and then shortly thereafter, I would imagine they'll hold another meeting like they did at Lincoln University for the public. As soon as that's done, then they move into their design planning for any buildings and infrastructure that they're putting in. And so they start going through all of those processes, including getting the appropriate permits and all of that stuff. So they say 3 to 5 years before they get all of that completed and are able to break ground, put the buildings in, and complete the master plan. But they can actually revisit the master plan every 10 years and update it. So there's wiggle room right
That's
now where there's
interesting.
no camping. We're okay with no camping for 3 to 5 years at this point from the sounds of it. But after that, it's anyone's guess what they'll do. So I think we just have to stay very vigilant.
They need to, so they can update the master plan every 10 years.
Yes.
So, and then their master plan may not be executed for 5. So does it mean every 10 years after the master plan is approved or completed? I guess it must
Approved.
be approved. So it'll be 10 years from whenever they.
However, they did admit in a meeting that just because it's not in the master plan doesn't mean they can't do it.
Oh, right.
So-
A master plan is not law, right?
So
It's
they could
just
still throw, if they decide next year that things are going the way they want it and they think people are not paying attention and they want to throw camping in, they're going to throw camping in.
right. Yeah, it's not a legal document. It's a planning document.
Right.
Anything? No words.
And Tia, you said, what's happening on March 6th? I missed there was a lot of words in there and I missed what's actually happening.
I'm sorry. So the original date for them to show us the master plan was March 6th, but John Lawrence sent out an email last week, or John Hollis, I'm sorry.
Okay.
John Hollis sent out an email last week basically saying that does not give their planners enough time to complete the mapping and everything else. So they wanted to bump it until May.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And then when is the meeting in Harrisburg? What day?
February 27th. It's next Thursday. It is the budget hearing for DCNR with the House. The Senate is not holding a budget hearing for DCNR this year. Only the House is. And it begins at 10 a.m.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I don't think we have any other questions. Thank you, Antia, and appreciate the work and time you're putting into this. It's I know it's a lot. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Okay, I think next item on the agenda is Mark Zawada is here to give the Franklin Sportsman's Association update.
Okay, this is our last report for the year for the 2024-25 hunting season. The deer season's ended on January 25th. We had another very safe and productive year hunting the township properties. There were 0 safety incidents and no negative incidents of any kind reported to us. We did note, as usual, quite a few dogs off lead. We had a couple incidents that were dogs well off the trail chasing deer while people were hunting. So that continues to be a problem, but overall it was a very good season. We ended up with 12 deer, 9 doe and 3 buck, 5 doe off of Banffshire and 4 antlerless and 3 antlered from Franklin. We did have some trouble with the snow getting up on White Clay Crescent a couple times. I tried twice and couldn't get up there, even with 4-wheel drive. But we're at 145 hours for service projects, and a bunch of our members plan on helping on Sunday. I plan on being there to help with Banffshire. And that's pretty much it. Want to thank the Board of Supervisors for letting us have another safe and productive year.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it and appreciate another safe and productive year. You know, we had an informal conversation, Jim and I, about White Clay Crescent. It's one of those, it's a pretty attractive area for a hunter. There really people don't hike it. It's kind of off the beaten path, but the access to it is a little problematic. And I wonder if there's something we can do to make access a little bit better to get your truck up there without maybe, you know, because there's not much there's not much parking up there. It's really difficult. So we want to make it, is there a way we can make it a little bit more accessible without?
It's my favorite one, just
Yeah.
for the reasons you say. You don't see
Yeah.
dog walkers, you don't
Yeah.
see people. It's beautiful. That's one of the first times that I really couldn't make it up there. I've gone there before. There's been trees.
Yeah.
Usually with four-wheel drive, it's accessible.
Okay.
I didn't have the greatest. My truck probably could use some new tires, but I know another member told me he couldn't make it up either. You just steep
Too
enough,
steep.
and you know. But
Okay.
last year I had no trouble. Yeah. So
Okay.
no, it's a beautiful preserve. That's a gem.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mark. All right. With that, we can open it up to public comment. This public comment can include comments on anything attendees may want to share with the board and the community. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a township resident or a taxpayer of the township. Is there any public comment? All right, not hearing any, I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:05 p.m. Can I have a second? Second. Thank you, Jim. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries 3-0. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.